All right, g'day, g'day. Welcome back to Collectivitis, the podcast where we dissect the disease that is collectivism. My name's Pietro. This is Floyd. Haven't been on an episode in a while, Floyd. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm feeling excited.
That's good.
So let's yeah.
That makes two of us. So
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, a bit of a
excitement
big Kev
abounds.
right now.
Sorry, what was that?
Bit of a big Kev right now. I'm excited.
Beautiful. Well, we've got
Yeah.
three topics. Hopefully, we get to all three. We might do
Hmm.
two. We'll see how far we go. But they're all sad. They're all bad topics.
Great,
There's nothing
great.
positive. So let's see if I can temper your excitement a little bit because you are
Well,
way too positive.
I'm feeling a bit like shit right now. Then now that you've said that.
Good. Let's see if I can make you feel worse. Fantastic. Um, well, the unfortunately, there's just bad stuff happening, really. And we could talk about. I don't know if I had to force a good thing that's happened recently. I can't think of anything. Uh, what's her name? Nikki Haley dropping out. That was a while ago, but
Yeah.
nothing really that libertarian goods happening. So let's talk about the bad stuff. Why force
Hmm.
it?
Hmm.
Um,
Well, it's kind of like being a libertarian. Nothing good ever happens to you. So
well, and if you look at it that way, when the random, Harvey Millet pops up, it's way more. It's
yeah,
even more
yeah,
exciting because
yeah,
you're ready to just lose all the time. Look, the first one actually, it is a negative, but it is a case of us being proven right, and once again, the proponents of government having no fucking idea what's going on. So, well, I guess that's it's kind of positive. Anyway, the first thing I wanted to talk about was the recent slew of music festivals and I guess just festivals in general, which are getting cancelled. So just last week we had Splendour in the Grass, which got cancelled after like what was like 20 years this thing's been running. It's like a staple of the Australian music industry. I think I heard 20 years. I could be wrong there. And this follows also a few months ago, Groovin the Moo got cancelled. And these are very mainstream Australian music festivals that certainly aren't, catering to a niche crowd. They're very popular. They were very popular. In fact, there's a lot of people coming out and being sad about it. But they didn't just randomly cancel. They announced their set lists. I think in both cases, tickets went on sale.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They
And
did.
a couple of weeks after tickets went on sale, they cancelled,
Mm,
which to me, and I don't know what you think, but to me reads one of two things. Either
mm,
um, ticket sales were down compared to what they were expecting. So maybe they jacked up ticket prices. So the first thing that's obvious that we all could have guessed is that the cost of running a music festival has obviously gone up astronomically, right?
mm.
Because as much as the CPI might hide inflation, and the government might tell us that inflation's on a downward trend and whatnot, and we might be gaslighted into thinking that the economy is better than it actually is. The reality of running a music festival is that there's loads of different costs from different areas that go into it. And if those costs are too high and they can't sell enough tickets or they can't sell
Yeah,
tickets at a higher price,
yeah,
they're not going to make a profit and the festival gets cancelled. So
yeah,
there's kind of two things that could have happened there. Either one, they did jack up the prices of tickets, and that's what's caused people to not purchase them, and or not enough people to purchase them, and therefore it's getting cancelled. Or they tried to keep costs low or tried to work it out and have realized that it's no longer financially viable with the increased cost of things by keeping tickets at the same price. So
I,
I would
I think
imagine one of those two things happened.
something's telling us here. Obviously we've never looked at the ticket prices for these festivals to see whether they've gone up or not.
Yeah, I probably could have done some research in that avenue. Obviously, I'm not a. I've gone to music festivals before, but not these ones in particular. So yes, I could have done some
Yeah,
extra
yeah, yeah,
research. Um, but that's it's one of those two cases I would think would have to be because like these are much loved festivals, and there's no shortage of
well,
goodwill in the public for
um,
them.
I don't know, are they, do you know anyone who goes to these festivals?
Plenty, yes. No, maybe
Okay,
not this
wow.
year. Like I haven't heard
Okay,
of people necessarily this year buying a ticket, but in the past, yeah, heaps and heaps of
wow.
people. All the normies that I would, tell them that the government is, a piece of shit, and they'd go,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, whatever, weird conspiracy. I'm gonna go have fun at a music festival. That was those were the
I
conversation. So
I have never known anyone to ever go to these festivals. I remember back when I was like 18, 19, people were going to like Falls Festival. But after I was 20 years old, I know all the festivals that were cancelled. I've never known a person to go to these festivals.
well, and maybe the demographic is sort of early 20s, and the fact that we're edging away from
Yeah.
that. Maybe, our circles are also getting older and it's not super popular with that demographic. But I don't think that I wasn't under the impression that they were getting any less popular. And I always thought that they were
Mhm.
very popular. I knew lots of people who went to these things. And the other thing is, um, look, potentially the fact is that everyone is feeling the pinch from whatever kind of debt they're in, whether it's a house debt or a car debt or whatever it is, and interest rates going up, and you don't have the disposable income to go to these things.
Yeah.
And, you deprioritize something like this, a little bit, but if enough people deprioritize this, then, it crumbles upon itself.
Yeah, well,
Um,
it's not just. I mean, I've gone to a few festivals in my time, mostly day fests though. But I mean, the planning involved in this. Just though, you look at petrol prices, you look at food prices, even booze. You're paying whatever 300 and whatever for a ticket, but then add an extra 300 at least just to get there and back and subsist yourself and get really fucked up while you're there.
Yeah, well, and that's right, and it's just not something that's viable at the moment.
Yeah,
And I think what is the libertarian insight into all of this, and we'll watch a video of what they think the insight is into all of
oh,
this. And
okay.
because I was alerted to this story on Triple J. To my shame, I play Triple J in the car sometimes.
Yeah,
I like to hear what the other side thinks,
yeah.
and they're very,
Well, it's because you're cool, Pietro. It's okay to admit it.
I'm very cool. But like Triple J's idea of cutting edge journalism is saying that climate change is real. Like that's
Yeah,
they're as pro government, pro norm,
yeah.
pro mainstream as you
Take
can.
your take your jab.
Yeah, yeah, that's that's
Fourth
their
boots
that's
are
their
coming
cutting
up.
edge journalistic interpretation of things. Um, but even they were saying like they get to the point they'd be like, well, cost of living is
Mm,
coming and
yeah,
hitting everyone really hard, and that's just something that we're going to have to deal with. And like the whole time, everyone constantly, consistently, and that you might blame the RBA. They're raising interest rates. What are they doing? They're raising interest rates
mm,
without ever mentioning for even 1 second why is it that we are having this enormous surge of inflation.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
as much as, you get criticized sometimes for dwelling on 2020 and 2021, it's like COVID's over, get over it, like blah, 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 blah. The whole point of going against the lockdowns was that by locking down, apart from the fact that, I don't want to be stuck in my house, but if by locking down and by forcing everyone to stop working, and the only way you can keep them happy doing this is to print an enormous amount of money,
mm,
and not
mm,
just print an enormous amount of money like they do all the time. And yes, they printed even more this time, but immediately injecting it directly into the economy by putting it into average people's pockets where they spend it. Like they immediately injecting it into the economy is the sole, or not the sole, but the far main reason why there's this enormous surge of inflation. And all the pain we're feeling of inflation now is a direct consequence of that policy,
yeah,
that system that they did. That
yeah,
we need to the measurement they were using at the time was if even if it all saves one life, it will be worth it.
mm,
And that sounds
yeah,
so great. Like at the time, it sounded so great to say, hey, even if we just save one life, this will all have been worth it.
yeah,
Okay, sure. What are the things that you are now giving up for the sake of that one life that was so indispensable? Well, it's
yeah,
the
yeah,
fact that you can't afford to buy a house. It's the fact that you can't afford
mm,
groceries. It's the fact that music festivals are crumbling and dying. It's the fact that all the
yeah,
things that we love now are slowly disappearing because we are going to hit massive levels of inflation and a recession. That was the cost.
mm,
And it was alarmist to say it back then, and now it's not alarmist. We just don't talk about it. It's just completely ignored,
mm.
and no one brings it up. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of a, when it comes to the festivals myself, I'm of a bit of a different mind. I mean, definitely cost of living and inflation and stuff. I can see what you're saying about the kind of the COVID knock-on effect. I mean, anyone who goes to the supermarket or just to buy something can see that these days. So I don't think it just relates to music festival. You know, my bloody beer. Geez, I was ranting on Easter the price of long necks. So I'm all there with you. But I think the music festivals themselves, I don't know. I see this as just basic economics and not macroeconomics, microeconomics, supply and demand. Because on Thursday, so Easter Thursday, whatever the term the Catholics use, I was in the city and a bunch of people were wearing these shirts. They had the little anarchist A's on them as well. I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. Bunch of people wearing these shirts from these bands, and I'm like, oh, so what's the deal? What type of music did you go see? They said it was hardcore hip hop, whatever that means. I don't know. To me, hardcore hip hop's like Necro and Ill Bill, but let's not talk that topic. So obviously, these people are going out in Melbourne. Like there were hundreds of these people who went to go see this gig. So there are people out there that are watching music or listen. Well, yeah, watching music. You don't listen to it at a festival. So I mean, I looked at like the lineup for Splendour in the Grass, and I mean, like Kylie Minogue is headlining it. It's like, who wants to see Kylie Minogue in her 50s singing songs from the 80s and the 90s, you know, with half the set songs from her new album, you know, when I can go and watch some kid playing psytrance for 2 hours, you know, I mean, I'll definitely pick the psytrance. And I didn't know a lot of people in the lineups, but it was just like, I think the music and the content itself, they're not putting on a good spread. And you see, like, you look at like, I mean, they're day fest, so it's different. They're not the ones you go out to, but I know like Strawberry Fields was on. That's a camp out one. Meredith Golden Plains were on this year. So the festivals are definitely, it's not the whole festival scene. But you know, you put on an R&B event in Melbourne, an R&B type festival, everyone's going to that. That gets sold out. So I don't know. To me, I love my music rants. You know, for those people that know me, they know I love to talk about my music. So I think this is a music issue on a microeconomic level as far as like supply and demand. There's too much supply out there. And do you remember back when all the day fests in Melbourne cancelled? So like within 2 years, you had like Summer Days, Future. I think there were about 7 all got cancelled.
No, but
Okay.
I remember those festival names, and I remember they don't
Yeah,
exist
yeah.
anymore. But I can't remember it all happening in such a short time frame.
Yeah, yeah. So like now all you've got's like stereo and no one raised the fuss then. So no one, I mean, I've seen what some of the politicians and stuff were saying. No one really raised the fuss. I'm gonna call out prejudice here because people don't like their doof doof. They'd rather do the stupid bloody rock music. And I mean, it's the same type of bands that complain about how, oh, back in the day the pubs used to play music, and now back in the day we used to have these festivals. Anyway, I'm ranting here, Pietro. I think it's the content itself, as well as the fact that, you know, I don't want to pay $450 for this really shitty experience of having to drive up to Byron Bay.
Yeah,
Oh,
look, and
and pay a surplus for my my drinks and my drugs. I mean,
yeah, there's for sure an element of truth there, and like that goes. We had Taylor Swift, whose tickets are
mm,
much more expensive here recently, and that sold out and was extremely popular and everything. I think it comes down to you're right, and like it's not all music and whatnot. But I think these ones especially, like because they are so expensive,
yeah,
or reasonably expensive, and there is
yeah,
a
yeah,
high cost to also going. It is a luxury item.
yeah,
In the and those are the ones that people are more willing to forego, where in the past they might
yeah,
have attended. And you know, like going to some you know underground R&B, hip hop, whatever it is in Melbourne, like the cost of entry of that is much lower, and maybe people are replacing
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the more expensive stuff with that
Well, I don't know.
stuff, which
Maybe I should look up what the ticket prices were on whatever archive.org. But I'm sure if they were like 200, $150, and then they'd still be going ahead.
yes,
May not
well,
get
yes.
the people you want, but I mean, you don't just go to festivals necessarily for content. That's what draws you in. But I mean, the atmosphere is one thing. So if it's like, hey, if I can pay, you know, 100, $150 just to get messy with some people, then you will. But if it's like 350 for people who I don't really want to see, is the atmosphere worth it?
Yeah, and I suppose like that's the point, right? The cost of the
Yeah.
tickets has to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
gone up because
Yeah.
like the cost of putting this thing on has to have gone up.
Mm.
And all right, so well let's
Okay.
let's have a look at usually we
Okay.
start with the news report. We
Yeah. Yeah.
dive straight into that's all right. Let's look at the news report now because I think there is an interesting angle to this, which we might get something out of. So
Okay.
anyway.
For the future of Australian music festivals this morning after the iconic Splendour in the Grass was cancelled. It's one of 25 festivals called off in just the past 2 years.
Yeah, let's bring in Blues Fest Chairman Peter Noble, the man, the legend himself, live from Lennox Head in New South Wales. Hey, Peter, good to see you.
Live from the Blues Fest site.
Yes.
Sorry, the sun's shining
Blues
out
Fest.
the back there. You can't see me. I notice it's shining in the back window there. But,
I may have gone there.
So the sun is still shining for some people in the festival industry.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that, Peter. Good morning. Look at you smiling away like I was before kids. But anyway.
Absolutely. I've been up till 2 a.m. with the bands, and what is it now? 8 o'clock. Perfect time to be on air.
Good on you, Peter. Does this make you a bit nervous for the future of festivals?
What I'm really nervous about is that the Reserve Bank has done a job on us. That's what's really hurting music festivals, that the disposable dollar has been taken out of people's pockets. There's nothing in them. And so just like with COVID, you see the music industry suffer where the first one's closed during COVID and the last one's open. And now you've got the Reserve Bank doing their job on us. That's what I see.
Yeah.
That's why I think the 20, 30% down. And government, come on, do something about it. Australians are hurting. And when we lose a great event like Splendour, it's the only time anybody wants to speak with me about it. I can't get a voice in government. I say I'll fly to Canberra. They say they're busy, you know, and I put on the most highly awarded festival in Australia. Yeah. It's a tragedy when an event like Splendour is cancelled. And we need to do something about it to save the music industry. Let's support it and not just only talk about it when another one bites the dust.
We just want to party, huh?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And look, I mean, Blues Fest is raging, as you said.
I'm an arts presenter. I'm the most highly awarded event in this country. No other event has been nominated 9 times for World's Best Music Festival by Polestar magazine in the US, but mine. All right. And I can't get with.
All right, that's enough of him. I'll let you go at it first, if you like, or I can have you. Yeah, go.
Well, he was at Blues Fest, which was going ahead, so obviously the festival scene isn't being tormented that much. He was nominated for those. No, he didn't actually win it. Anyway, that's just me. That's just me cutting my little anti these festival rants out. Yeah, I love it. Interest rates, you know, it's the Reserve Bank, but oh crap, the government needs to do something now. Not that maybe we don't need the government intervention in it all. Maybe if everything was just a little bit more lax, and you know, we didn't have to. I hear putting on festivals, I mean, just getting the permits and stuff is crazy for it all. So I mean, maybe if we didn't have all these regulations and stuff, it would be easier, but no, go straight to the government. We need them to put it in bloody place, of course.
Yeah, I same thoughts. Right? I got excited when he starts off and they ask him, right, what's wrong with music? The RBA. What? Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Hey, fantastic. What is it about the RBA? And then it's not the fact that everyone's cost of living crisis that we're now experiencing is caused by the RBA and their coalition with the government throughout COVID. And he does mention COVID. No, it's not that. It's the fact they're raising interest rates. But of course they're raising interest rates. You know, if they didn't raise interest rates, there'd be more inflation. Like they're trying to butcher their way towards hitting the correct interest rate, which should be left to the market. And they're still way below it considering the amount of money in circulation. and he hits at that. That's the problem, right? Obviously, ignoring the source, ignoring the core, ignoring the catalyst for why no one has the disposable dollar. He's just, looking at a symptom, and then what's the response? No, yeah, government needs to do something about it. Which, of course, what does that mean? It means we want the government to pump a heap of money into the music festival, into the music festival industry or the music industry, which of course would have nothing to do with further driving up inflation, just printing a whole heap of extra dollars. And I can't get these government people to listen to me. They only listen to me when a festival shuts down. I can't get my lobbyists in. I can't get my slice of the pie, and I can't get my palms greased. It's such bullshit. Woe is me, poor me, just so stupid. And it's just like, they're so close. Like, that, you're right. You're right. Cost of living, inflation is painful. It's causing us to miss out on things that we should have. Why has it happened? Why is it happening? No, obviously completely wrong, completely incorrect. The solution is more government, as per fucking usual.
And I think there seem to be. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say what I want. But wouldn't it just be in a case of like the market dictating that maybe no, we don't want these festivals on, at least for this price? Just saying, well, we had a good run. We're going to downsize. We're going to do something a bit different. It doesn't have to go on for 50 years. I mean, if you talk about music, like the good clubs eventually shut. The good venues eventually shut, like, the Forum. I mean, the SB shut, for fuck's sake. But I mean, you've only got a few places that really live on. I mean, this should be a thing where it's like, while this kind of happens, we're gonna assess what the market tells us and do it. But yeah, no, government needs to do something for something that people might not even show up for, or as many people show up for.
Yeah, and I understand that, right? Like a festival that caters to a certain style, and then as soon as that style, whenever that style eventually goes out of fashion, yes, that festival comes to a natural end. I do want to say though, like in that clip, and I am quoting that clip, but it says 25 music festivals shut since 2022, which is the start of when the inflation started hitting people, right? The money was pumped in at the start of in 2020 and 2021, and then in 2022, people started feeling the effects. And interest rates started going up. So does that temper your opinion that it's just, the market? Or I'm not saying you're saying it's just the market, but it's primarily the market. Does that temper your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure if inflation wasn't there, there'd be more, disposable kind of income available, or maybe more disposable money, not necessarily, I shouldn't say income, available for people to spend, because their cost of living isn't so high. But as well, I don't know. I think you've got to look at the market in any type of commercial venture. You've got to look at what's happening in the market and what's working. So I think it's probably a bit of both, in my opinion, especially going to Melbourne on a Saturday night and seeing what's going off and what's not going off.
Yeah. Well, the other one, which is mentioned they mentioned on Triple J radio, was that in tandem with these festivals shutting down, the Melbourne International Comedy Festival is experiencing significantly lower ticket sales than usual. And I mean, I don't think comedy goes out of fashion the same way that music and music festivals might. I think, because there's so many different styles of comedians, and people generally like comedians always. Comedy is always popular.
But I mean, I think comedy's been a really big contentious issue, as you've seen with a lot of things nowadays. I mean, I'm sure if Joe Rogan's going to the comedy festival, maybe tickets will start selling. As I said, I don't really know the comedy scene. I don't really care for comedy that much. I'm sorry, but I don't know the talent that's there. For all we know, you've just got a bunch of woke comedians who are saying the same shit.
I know the comedy scene far better than I know the music scene. The comedy scene is, especially in Melbourne, is completely monopolized by woke lefty style comedians. There are exceptions, and there are exceptions who I know are there. They are minor comedians, but there is also the crowd, like the audience, the primary comedy going audience is completely of that style of or political orientation generally, right?
Yeah.
So there's no shortage of people of that view willing to go to comedy festivals and see those styles of comedians.
Yeah.
Now, I understand, you're saying comedy is contentious, but those aren't the people who had been going to the Melbourne International Comedy Festival before anyway, the ones who would go see Joe Rogan.
I know anecdotally, it'd be random colleagues I work with saying, oh, for the comedy festival, I'm going to go see this person and this person. I haven't heard people say that recently,
Well, that's the point, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying they are also experiencing the pinch and whatnot of the cost of inflation. And that's another, that's a luxury item. Comedy does cost a fair bit, for a really good comedian, for one of the headline acts. You could spend $50 to $100 to go see them. And that's, hey, fuck it, I don't need to spend that this time around. I'll watch their special on Netflix or something. And, and that's it's not the diehards who are going to stop going. Same with the music festival. It's not the diehards who are going to stop. It's those fringe ones who were barely going, but that's the important profit margin to be hitting. And they're the ones who are dropping off, and that's where these things have to close down. Now, obviously, the Melbourne International Comedy Festival is not close to closing down or anything, but the reporting is that they are having significantly lower sales. And I would imagine it's probably close to in tandem with that 20 to 30% that they talked about in the music industry.
Yeah. But I mean, you can always, geez, I don't want to use the term specifically lean, but you can always cut down the fat from a business. And I think that's the whole idea. I think these people want to have their cake and eat it too, in the sense that we're not going to cut the costs associated with it so that we can actually match the market to hit that supply and demand there. We're not going to fuck around and do all this stuff where people are going to say, well, we can bring a ticket price down lower and get people actually there. So I think what I'm trying to say is I think the market is there. I think it's just the pricing is too high. Whether that's cost of living or not, I think if you had something really good going ahead and it was for a really good price, people would go for it. But yeah, as you're saying, could be that cost of living issue there. But there are plenty of people going out and doing stuff.
Well, anyway, we lingered on that quite a long. I think that's the core point. I think we probably, honestly, slightly disagree there on the most important element. The other stuff I wanted to talk, which is great, because disagreeing is way more fun than just agreeing all the time. So let's see if we can disagree some more. I might just force myself to disagree on the next point. Well, the next thing we're going to talk about is Julian Assange. So
I'll give him the death penalty. Come on.
It's going to take a lot for us to disagree on this. Fuck him up. He's a traitor. He's a traitor to America.
Yeah. How dare he release those documents, man? I always wanted him to die. Like,
Julian, if you see some US military committing war crimes in Afghanistan, shut the fuck up about it. Keep your mouth shut. Don't tell anyone, because it's important to national security, Julian.
You should have reported it. You should have said, "Hey, these people are giving me this stuff. Give them the death penalty as well."
Chelsea Manning is a rat. You want to fuck Chelsea Manning up.
But yeah, Julian, anyway, what's going on? What's going on?
Well, unfortunately, it's not as fun as that. I'll play the clip first, because Julian Assange had a hearing recently, and we've just had the outcome in this last week. And basically, it was up to 2 UK judges to decide whether or not he would be extradited to the US. And I'll just play the clip. That is probably the easiest way to do it.
Founder of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, is avoiding immediate extradition to the United States on espionage charges. Instead, the United Kingdom is placing further burden on the United States government. Today, the London High Court gave the government 3 weeks to assure them that Assange, an Australian citizen, would have the same legal rights as U.S. citizens and that he would not face the death penalty. If the U.S. fails to give those assurances, Assange will be allowed to appeal his extradition at a hearing in May. It has now been 5 years of Assange fighting extradition from London. He's facing 18 criminal charges in the United States related to the WikiLeaks distribution of classified material and diplomatic cables back in 2010 and 2011.
That's it. So essentially, my takeaway from that is it's basically all bad. It's not really a good thing, right? Like we were kind of hoping there would be a better outcome of this, so that, you know, extradition. The Australian government has now recently, like as in the last few months, started putting pressure to get Julian Assange, you know, given back to Australia. And it's definitely not extradited to the US. The reason he had not been extradited already was because of fears of his health and of the fact that he might kill himself, and of fears that they might give him the death penalty. So essentially, what they've said is, "Hey, if you don't promise us that you won't give him the death penalty, we might let him go back to Australia." So what's the US going to do? I'd say that certainly now they'll say, okay, sure, we won't give him the death penalty. Extradite him over here. We'll chuck him in Guantanamo Bay. We'll throw away the key and fuck him up for the rest of his life. He's already been in solitary confinement for God knows how many years, you know, where he gets 1 hour a day outside of four walls. He's dying slowly in the worst possible way that you can, completely isolated from people. God knows what his mental health is like. They've thrown him back in there, so there's no they've delayed this thing. There's no end in sight still. And the end is probably going to be now that the US says, okay, fine, we won't kill him. We'll just fucking keep him in jail forever. Yeah. So, I don't know. What are your thoughts? It's all bullshit to me.
It was interesting watching that. And they said they want to give him the rights of a US citizen as an Australian citizen. That's, I don't know, I'm not a big lawhead, but that's a very interesting kind of legal thing. From what they're saying is that, I don't know if that's something that's out of the ordinary to say and put forward. But I think as far as the Assange case in general, yeah, I mean, he's been totally screwed over. You know, technically, I guess not technically. Well, he did break some laws doing it, but I guess it's that argument of the greater good or not. And what he did was that for the greater good, which I do believe. And yeah, I mean, if I was in his case, I'd assume, yeah, I'm already fucked. I just want the death penalty, honestly.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fear is that he might kill himself if they go to the US, which is him taking it into his own hands. Because I mean, it's clear to me that it's been long enough now that if they wanted to let him quietly go, they could get away with it, and still they want to make an example of him. And
he's got to be a martyr, because Snowden got away. So we need someone to kind of say, hey, don't do this again. You know, regardless whether it's Trump or Biden, or even RFK, it's like, yeah, the American, what's that term they use? Not the empire, the
establishment.
Swamp. Yeah, the establishment, the swamp, whatever, that needs to show that it has absolute control and you can't go against it. And if you do...
That's exactly right. There was talk just before after Trump had lost the election to Biden, and just before he finished being president, there was talk. I think it was a libertarian guy, Judge Napolitano, who had convinced him to pardon Assange and Snowden.
Yeah.
And it's all an interview. You can watch Judge Napolitano tells the story a fair bit, but he had convinced Trump to let them go, to pardon them. And Trump was, you know, going to go in the process of doing it. And then he called back a couple of days later, and he said, no, look, I've spoken to people and they've changed my mind. I'm not going to do this anymore. And you need to be aware of the fact that, you know, anytime we have a conversation on the phone, there's 20 to 30 CIA agents who are listening in. So, like, immediately after he'd kind of been convinced, the swamp or the establishment surrounded him. And I don't know how they convinced him, what they said to him, whether they even threatened him or anything, but he didn't do it. I'd say maybe, if I'm being as charitable towards Trump as I possibly can, there's a chance that if Trump wins the election, he might pardon Assange, but I wouldn't. He didn't do it when he could, so I wouldn't put much hope in it. But Biden definitely won't, or whoever the Democrats pick. So I mean, I guess that's a slight advantage. I can't remember. I think maybe Ramaswamy talked about Snowden and Assange in a positive light. I can't. Okay. I feel like I remember that slightly, but
well, I remember when Trump was campaigning, he said he would, and he didn't.
Originally in 2016,
yeah. But he was like, I think, kind of vague quote is like, this Julian Assange guy, we've got to pardon him. and it was very like, I have no idea who this guy is. People have said that
Yeah,
I should
yeah,
say
yeah.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly that. And I remember when I love WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks is the best when WikiLeaks kept releasing stuff about Hillary Clinton, and then as soon as he was actually leading in the polls or when he won it or whatever, he distanced himself from it. Yeah. Again, yeah, complete political opportunist. But I don't know. You know, that's the only hope I can see for Assange, because I don't see him getting justice any other way. I think otherwise he dies in prison.
You know, I don't think Australia or the UK have the political pressure on the US to make them do anything.
No, that
unless
is
they
abundantly
say
clear.
we're gonna we might consider Russia as a better friend or something like that, but I don't think they will.
Yeah. Last time we were talking about Assange, we played the clip of Scott Morrison, who was being asked about Assange, and he was saying, "Well, no, you know, in this case, there's nothing special about his case. He needs to absolutely be followed down to the letter of the law. He's nothing special about him at all. We have to, if he's guilty of crimes, we have to follow the judicial process. Blah blah blah. Nothing special about him at all. You know, apart from the fact that he's completely being chased down by a political empire for revealing their secrets, which were in the public interest. Nothing special about it at all. So at least with Scott Morrison, we were bending over to whatever the US wanted. And I mean, we probably will. It's probably performative, I would say, more than anything.
I think Albanese and Labor are probably just doing this just to appeal to that voter base that might be considering the Greens or considering other parties and saying, hey, you know, we're kind of good guys as well. Like we'll I think this is all just for show, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Performative is probably what it is. And they know they have no influence, so it costs them nothing to make the show of it.
Yeah.
Well, so there's two pieces of bad news. Let's wrap it up with a hat trick, with a trifecta of bad news. The other thing that's happened recently is the digital ID bill has been rammed through in the Australian Senate by the putting together Labor and the Greens. And it was opposed by the coalition, and Alex Antic actually has spoken a fair bit about it, and he's very good on it. Yeah, he's really good on it. In fact, they seem to have allowed him to be the spokesperson on this issue, which is good. Not that it did anything, because they rammed it through the Senate, and which means that it'll go through unchanged through the House of Reps, because they have the majority there without even needing to dip into the crossbench. And essentially, this digital ID bill coalesces all of the needing to give identification for various things into a single government-run database, and it's completely voluntary, and you don't have to enter into it to begin with, but you can see very clearly that as it becomes more convenient, more people will enter into it. It'll enter the mainstream, and then it'll become very difficult to go about the things that you need in your everyday life without having access to this digital ID bill, which is for libertarians certainly quite terrifying. You can see the incremental steps happening in front of us towards something like what's it called, the Chinese social credit system, where hey, do what you're told, otherwise we won't give you access to things like your banks or whatever else that you want to access with this thing. So that's another great thing happening here. What do have you followed the saga?
I saw that it got rammed through. That's all I'm really up on. I don't really know the contents of it or anything that's being talked about regarding it. I did see that the Greens supported it. I thought that was really interesting, because what happens when these fascists get into government and they want to control you guys. So I don't know. I think this might be a bit short-sighted. I don't know the context or anything behind it. Is it kind of like a MyGov type of thing?
Yeah. And that's the parallel they draw, is like, at the moment there's MyGov, but then a whole lot of private industries have to take your details separately as well. Yeah. What if we just made it all MyGov and you just used MyGov for everything? And so like this solidifying the connection between like corporations and companies and the government database so that they all have to buy in. So essentially, even if you wanted to start a company or whatever, to have people, if you needed identification from people, if there was a regulation that said that you had to collect identification, you can no longer do that or check that independently.
Okay.
You also have to sign up to this digital ID thing once it becomes not quite as voluntary as they pretend it is now. And it's, it's the whole initially they come in and they say, hey, it's nothing, it's just this little thing, it's voluntary, don't worry about it, you can opt in, you can opt out, it's not a problem. Just like originally when they first started floating the idea of the vaccines, they were voluntary, they were absolutely, we are never gonna ever do mandates, we will never have mandatory vaccination in Australia. That's a direct quote from Scott Morrison. And then lo and behold, you can't enter any shop, you can't leave your house, and you can't have a job unless you've done this thing. So yeah, they might not come at you with a gun, but if you want to access your bank or anything else, then you will need to use this thing.
Might be a bit Malthusian, but I've got a question for you. What happens? What's it called when the state and private corporations merge?
Cronyism.
It's called
Crony
fascism.
Capitalism. Well, yeah, I thought fascism was only Adolf Hitler when he killed Jews. Isn't that the only fascism that exists?
It's only people you disagree with.
Yeah, of course.
In the 21st century sense.
I know I have fascists. I get told I'm a fascist all the time. Me. Yeah, well, I mean, and crony capitalism is just it's like that Rick and Morty meme. It's just fascism with extra steps. Anyway, so that's the stuff we wanted to talk about today. That's the bright news brought to you by Collectivitis. How do you feel now? Are you still as excited about the prospect of living?
I think I've got to finish a few more of these beers after this podcast.
You got to start with a few extra to be able to weather the storm. Well, look, that brings us nicely to the end. I think that's a good place to finish. Look, we'll try some more positive items next time. We'll see. Positive things need to happen. Hey, it's on you. It's on you, dear viewer. Go do some positive libertarian things.
Yeah, well, that's how it starts. It's a grassroots type of thing. I mean, maybe people will say, well, this maybe you comment down below if you think this episode of Collectivitis is a positive thing getting out, like, share, subscribe, all that type of stuff.
Hell yeah, share, subscribe.
Sharing Collectivitis is actually a really positive thing that you can report back on, and subscribing and telling your friends about it. I think that's probably like the most positive thing you can do for society.
Yeah, instead of like the Christian thing, get the good news out. No, get the bad news out. We're the bad news. Get the bad news out into the world, and that will make the world a better place.
It's already been Easter. We've already got the good news. So let's.
So everyone knows the good news. No need to repeat and bang on about it. Now give them the bad news.
Yeah, the post-Easter wrap up.
If you don't already, follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, and Twitter or X. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We will catch you next time.